on the topic of the hidden self. What we need to kind of understand that this self that everybody knows, because you know your own self, but it is yet indistinct. It's not distinctly known. If it is distinctly known, you will experience immortality. Now, because it is indistinctly known, yet it is there, that's why we have the feeling of mortality. We are afraid. We see the manifoldness. What's this? This stream has been stopped because we detected copyright audio or video because we received complete community guideline violation. What's that? Anyway, we can do this. So, we have, to recap a bit, what we are seeing is a different orders of existence has been presented. First is, we have senses, but greater than the sensory system are the sense objects. Because if there were no sense objects, the senses wouldn't function. And the senses were developed to understand the external world. So it's like the key and the lock, of course, but then there is a higher existence leveled at these objects. So let me read the 10th verse. The sense objects are higher than the senses, and the mind is higher than the sense objects. So we have a higher order of existence called the mind. But the intellect is higher than the mind, and the intellect is obviously, and the great soul is higher than the intellect. So from the individual, it just jumps into the universal. And then the 11th verse is, the unmanifested is higher than the Mahat, that's the great soul. The Purusha is higher, that is the soul, the real soul, is higher than the unmanifest. There is nothing higher than the Purusha. That is the culmination, that is the highest goal. So here we have a different, a higher and a hierarchy of existence being presented to the aspirant, to one who wants to know the truth. Now, when we see, we had explained senses, sense objects, senses, mind, intellect, and then the great soul. Why is that called a great soul? Because you have transcended the limits of individuality. Every individual is a complement, it's a fine blend of both individuality and universality. If it wasn't true, we'll get into big trouble. Because that's what the sciences are saying, that's what our ordinary common sense says, that we are bound, linked to the external world, to the environment, to everything that's outside. You just can't have an individual that is in a kind of a space, private space and an individual space, and that will be forever and ever and ever. The Upanishad is trying to bring this truth to us. higher than the intellect is the great soul. That is called the Hiranyagarbha. The first manifestations. And then higher than the Hiranyagarbha, as the Upanishads say, is the unmanifest. Now, it's like the seed of a tree having the potential of the whole tree within it. So is this unmanifest. It is called the sum total of everything. It's called the unmanifest because it cannot be known ordinarily. It is not manifest to you right now. And then the higher than the unmanifest is the Purusha. Now, once we've understood this gradation, then the Upanishad speaks about, on the 12th verse, chapter 1, section 3, 12. That is hidden in all beings, and hence that does not appear as the self of all. It's a tremendous statement. But by the seers of subtle things, that is seen through the pointed and fine intellect. It's a tremendous statement here. Esha sarveshu bhuteshu gudo atman prakashate drishyate tvagrayaya buddhya sukshmaya sukshmadarshibhi. Now that self is hidden in all beings. What is hidden in all beings? All beings. Every being? Yes, every being has that consciousness. And why is it hidden? Well, we are not looking in the right direction. That's the reason why it's not being perceived by us. So that self is hidden in all beings. Like to mention it once again, we are a blend of that individuality and universality. Now, this being, this self, is also a blend of that individuality and universality. So that is hidden in all beings, and hence that does not appear as a self of all. What appears as a self? It appears as something different. It appears as the body and the senses and the mind and the intellect. So from the highest reality called Brahma to the clump of grass, this self is hidden in everything. Where is it hidden, and how do we know it is hidden? And how can we see it? That is why the next verse is saying, but by the seers of subtle things, that is seen through a pointed and fine intellect. Here we have this now idea. We are faced with how do we realize that hidden self? And the conditions given by the Upanishad is through a fine pointed intellect, where the intellect has become fine. What do you mean by fine? Subtle. Very subtle. Because the intellect has become gross, we see the world. The moment the intellect has become subtle, we can see that self. And it is perceived by the seers of subtle things. This world, as I've just mentioned, there are different orders of reality, different levels of reality. And as we keep on ascending those higher and higher levels, the quality of your mind and the intellect undergoes a change. It becomes pure. And as it keeps on getting more and more pure, the truth which is there, which is hidden in all beings, flashes before it. Why is it hidden? Well, for the simple reason is, the commentator says that it is inscrutable, unfathomable, and this is due to the positing of Maya. Maya makes you deflect from that reality, and it displays a variegated, you can say, universe in front of you. Yeah, and then we get so enmeshed in understanding and enjoying this external universe, while that real self is there hidden and remains unknown because Maya has come across. So when this aspirant, when he or she understands, I am that supreme self. We have started off the chapter with, there are two selves that have entered into the cave of the heart. Where is that cave of the heart? The cave of the intellect. In the intellect, there are two. One is a traveler with the illustration of a chariot, and the other is kind of just sitting down, is a kind of a passenger. So this self, as it is engrossed with all these things in the world, does not realize its real nature. So to realize that real nature, we will have to have that subtle and one-pointed intellect. Because it is in the intellect that this truth is realized. Yes. Where is it realized? People ask, where is it realized? Yeah, within you. Yeah, but where within you? In the purified intellect. It's a purified buddhi. And that is why we meditate with the intellect. We do japa, or the repetition of God's name, to that intellect. We do everything. But it has not been able to focus itself on itself. So as the purification process goes on and on and on, a long time back, I had asked my guru, some of us had actually asked, what is the need of reading so many books and listening to so many things? Saying, he smiles and says, well, it makes your intellect one-pointed. Everything you do goes to make that intellect one-pointed. That is the master here in the chariot of the body. Because the intellect is, as I say, the one which holds the reins. The reins are the mind, the horses are the senses, and the body is the chariot. So here it is. It depends totally on the intellect, that buddhi, to lead you where you're supposed to be. That is the highest state of realization. Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam. But when the intellect has become kind of diverted, it goes off track. Yeah. So that's why it is hidden in all beings. Esha sarveshu bhuteshu gudo atma na prakashati. Even in the Upanishad, in the Bhagavad Gita, they say, Naham prakasha sarvasya yoga maya samar. I am not revealed to all. Why? Because I am enveloped in that yoga maya. So why is this kind of a cat and mouse game? Yeah, in a way, you can call it a cat and mouse game. But we are not playing that game correctly. If we do play the game, the cat and mouse game correctly, people are able to catch that. So the Upanishads is giving you a location. This is where you need to search. You don't keep on searching, beating around the bush over and over and over again. Why? Because you're wasting your time. It's now located here. Now, after pinning it down in a particular place, now then what happens is, so the instrument is yet blunt. It is not sharp enough. It is not pure enough. So now you keep on sharpening the intellect, making it fine and fine and fine and fine and fine. How do you make it fine? Well, through prayers, through repetition of God's name, through study of the scriptures, through meditation, because these things are now focusing your attention inwards. You see? All this while you have been focusing outwards. Why do you look up at the skies? Oh, that's heaven and there God is there inside. Oh, why don't you look within? We are changing or we are reorienting ourselves. If you cannot understand it here, you will not be able to understand it anywhere else. This is the nearest, the closest, and the most proximate place near you. So why do you have to discard this and go somewhere else to search for truth? Like Swami Vivekananda said, in books and temples vain thy search. Thine only is the hand that holds the rope that drags thee on. So once you have taken yourself, your attention, you've internalized your ideas within, the deeper and deeper and deeper you go, you transcend one layer of existence after another. As we have mentioned, senses, sense objects, mind and intellect and the great soul and the unmanifest, and then the higher than the unmanifest is that soul. Yeah, it's called a Purusha. Purusha because it fills everything. Purnameva. So this Purusha, this highest reality is reflected there in the intellect. I'll put this again. This Purusha is reflected in the intellect. Take for instance, you have a water which is turbid. It's whipped into waves, it's muddy, it's dirty, and the reflection of the sun will be not distinct, not clear. But as soon as the water of the lake becomes clearer and clearer and clearer, what happens is the sun is reflected more and more clearly. That is the intellect. The Supreme Soul is reflected everywhere. It's not that it is only in the intellect. It is reflected everywhere. Everywhere you find there's a reflection of the Supreme Self. But in that intellect, that buddhi, you can experience that most distinct. Like light here, this light is being reflected on the walls, the piano, on the tables, on the chairs, and everywhere. But where exactly it is reflected most clearly? Yeah, in the mirror, in this glass panes. It's so clear. So the buddhi, there it is there, which is the clearest of all the other, you can say, categories of existence. So it is there when you need to catch it, hold it, and you'll be able to grasp it. So the first realization is your individual self as distinct from the body and the senses and the mind. And simultaneously, you have the perception of that same self as universal. It comes immediately, one after another. There are times when an aspirant has to struggle a little more and more and more. That's the reason why the sage has given us a kind of a graded existential existence that we need to realize. The highest and the highest and the highest. And as we keep on going higher and higher, once you realize the self here in the intellect, that's the individual soul, simultaneously you will experience that universal soul. Because this self is a derivative, if we can use the word, or a part of the universal self called Hiranyagarbha, the cosmic person, the cosmic man, the cosmic person. Now, this cosmic person is a combination of consciousness and Maya. So, the intellect also is a combination of consciousness and the element called buddhi. And as you take the consciousness aspect, you transcend everything else. You know the distinction between this and that. You realize consciousness as consciousness. The moment you realize consciousness, you will see that that consciousness is all pervading. People say, oh, you see, I have realized the self. Have you realized that universal consciousness? Oh, then that realization has got no meaning. We are conscious right now. But then when we go to sleep, what happens? Consciousness goes into a different kind of mode. And then we go into kind of dream state, is a different mode. Why is these different modes? Why is the waking and dream and deep sleep? Why is that? That is because of the packaging. So when you go to a kind of a store, you ask for something simple to buy, and they'll give it to you and they'll pack it up. They'll wrap it up. Always. Saying, no, you don't need to wrap it up. Oh, no, it's good. Consciousness is wrapped up with this Maya. And this Maya, as it transforms, that also because of the consciousness, we experience waking and dream and deep sleep. The moment we come down to the level of consciousness only, you have transcended Maya. And when you have transcended Maya, what happens is, you will see that consciousness is not delimited by your body or your mind or your waking and dream and deep sleep state, but it is all pervading. This is the Purusha. So how do we realize that? It's given subtle intellect. But then we always want, oh no, why don't you explain it further? Yeah. So the next verse explains this in a very succinct manner. The discerning person. So, chapter 1, section 3, 13th verse. The discerning person should merge the organ of speech into the mind. Then the person should merge that mind into the intelligent self. That should again be merged into that intelligent self, into the great self, the great soul. That person should merge the great soul into the peaceful self. Yachedvang manasi pragna Tadyached Jnana Atmani. Jnana Atmani Mahati Niyached. Tadyached Shanta Atmani. So it is telescoping this yourself, as it were, one into other, or resolving the lower into the higher. So the first is a person should, that's the qualification, a discerning person should merge the organ of speech into the mind. The organ of speech is a kind of, it's upalakshana, it's symbolically, it's an explanation of all the organs, all the five organs. These five sensory organs as well as the motor organs should be merged in the mind. How do we do that? We've explained Shama and Dama, you know, restraining the senses and keeping them inside. Now, once you have merged the sensory, you can say, organs which are internal, we're not talking about objects. What happens is you have impressions of those objects there in the mind. But now you have merged the senses into the mind into the intellect. You're telescoping, pushing it, making it smaller and smaller, trying to get that.
How can you distinguish the mind and the intellect?
Yes, the mind, the antakaran, actually the inner instrument, has fourfold functions. Mind, which doubts, deliberates whether it's this or no. Then we have the chitta, that's a memory, because you need to have memory. The sense of I, individuality, and then the intellect, buddhi. So mana, buddhi, chitta, ahankar. So the highest expression, the highest activity in this antakana, inner instrument, is called the buddhi. So in Indian, like in Vedanta, the mind is not the buddhi. It's a separate function of the inner instrument. We generally use the term in a generic way, mind, okay, mind. But it is quite distinctly kind of analyzed according to the functions of the inner instrument. Like these are instruments by hands. These are instruments which I grasp. These are external instruments. Now, what about the inner instruments? The inner instruments is that inner instrument, mind, intellect, the sense of I, and memory.
What would be the difference between the mind and the intellect?
Oh, yeah, huge difference. In technically, it's called, the mind is sankalpa vikalpatmaka. That is, when it sees a particular thing, it really doesn't understand it clearly. It kind of goes around it. The first kind of expression is, what is that? The intellect comes and says, this is the mic. And then it is corresponding that decision with old memories. And then you say, I know them. That is the mic. The sense of I. So these functions are distinct, yet they function, they operate so quickly, you can't discern the difference.
The I is the ego.
Yeah, the individuality, yes. So it's in a kind of high speed function. So we think, oh, the mind is the intellect. No, it's not. These are very, very distinct. So that's why we say we have something called intelligence. Oh, wow, intelligence. Wow. And we have something called the mind also. Are they the same? People generally use it as a kind of, it's the same. No. Vedanta, it's a distinct faculty. So here you have to merge your senses into the mind into the intellect. It's a resolution. Why? Why? You see, what happens is the whole universe has come out from the unmanifest, and then it becomes manifest, the cosmic mind. And from the cosmic mind comes a universal sense of I. And from this universal sense of I arises all this whole universe. So, while you are going down there individually, you are in a way going down to the root of this universe. Yes. It's not only your root, but you're going down to the very matrix, the very kind of core, the heart of the universe. And this is what is actually realization. Realization has to be cosmic. So, as you are now merging your senses into the mind into the intellect, and the intellect into the great soul. Now, what is that great soul? We had mentioned that the great soul there. The great soul is Hiranyagarbha, the cosmic man, cosmic person. Why is that great? It's called a great soul. Yeah, because in it everything merges and exists. You, me, the tree, plants, animals, birds, everything goes and merges into that. And why Hiranyagarbha? And why not anything else? Well, because the intellect is subtle compared to the senses and compared to the mind also, compared to the external objects. So Hiranyagarbha also is subtle. It's a collective of all the subtle bodies in the universe. So from your intellect you go straight to Hiranyagarbha. Now, when you say Hiranyagarbha, as we said, it's called Chidabhasa. We know that there is Hiranyagarbha, the very fact when you say the cosmic person, as we have said, is the combination of consciousness reflected in Maya.
Prakriti.
Maya, yeah, Prakriti, yeah. Ignorance. So it's a combination of, so your intellect has gone one notch higher, it's gone higher than that. You've gone to Hiranyagarbha. And then after that, from Hiranyagarbha, you go down to the real self. Everyone's. It's the highest you can, that universal self, the universal Atman, which is called Brahman. So from Hiranyagarbha you exit. And it is called a peaceful self. Why peaceful? Oh yeah, peaceful. Because there are no kind of disturbances, distractions, and there's no modifications. It's called Shanta Atman. The Atman is called, even by some other Upanishads like Mandukya, the peaceful self. People say, oh, you see, I want to experience peace. I'm so restless. Where's peace? Well, if you want real peace, you have to realize the Atman. Oh, but that's a very tall order. Yeah, very, very tall order. Yeah, but then you know that there is that peace there within you, and that has to be realized. So that self is called, so let me read the translation. The discerning person should merge the organ of speech into the mind. Why discern? That person is able to discern one order of existence from the other. Merge that, the senses into the mind into the intellect, and the intellect, the intelligent self, and should merge into the great soul, and the great soul should be merged into the peaceful self, the highest self. So you are reversing your own journey. You had started out, you had come out, and you're seeing this world, you're working, you're talking, you're eating, drinking, sleeping, you're experiencing the world. You had, as it were, you had stepped down from your real nature into this world of names and forms. And you've got to start the reverse journey back inside. This is what it is. You came out, you got trapped inside. Sri Ramakrishna gives the example of, fish. The fishermen lay down the traps, and the fish get into those traps, and those traps are kind of kept there for a couple of days probably. When the fisherman does come, so that fish enters into that net, the trap, and it gets caught. It should have simply reversed its journey. I came in like this, I have to go out like this. But what it does is, it takes a net in its kind of mouth and starts struggling, tries to tear that net. You don't need to do all that. Just reverse the way you came in. Similarly for all of us, how do we go? Yeah, reverse the whole thing. Reverse the process. This is the process called God realization, or realization of the Atman. When you know that, yes, I have kind of come out, and you see what happens is, you've understood this through your experiences. The more you are self-settled, the more you are calm and more happy. The more you come out of yourself, you want to do this, you want to do that, and the world will not give you what you want. You have to struggle. So life becomes a kind of a struggle. It's suffering. So life is struggle and suffering. And the more you come out of yourself, you go, the more you reach out and go out and spread yourself out, you're getting into bigger and bigger traps. It's always, don't spread yourself out too much, too thin. You're getting blows from nature. So what do? Don't start spreading yourself out. Bring yourself in. And then you start the reverse journey. So shouldn't I express my love and compassion? These are the things that really don't bind you. But the moment you spread yourself out with your ego, with your acquisition, with your desires, with your hate, with your ignorance, you're getting caught. You're going to get beaten up. So, reverse the journey. Don't spread yourself out too much. Pull yourself in. And as you keep on pulling yourself inside more and more and more, you will find more and more joy. The joy is actually inside, not outside. And as you keep on getting more and more and more joy, that is the indication that you are on the path of realization. Yo anta sukha antararamas, as the Bhagavad Gita we had seen. One whose delight is within, one whose joy is within, one who disports in the self. That person doesn't have to do. He is not bound by any rules of karma. But those who do not follow these kind of the rules of internalization or getting inside, they have to be beaten up by nature. And nature does kind of beat us in a way, trying to goad us actually, not beat us, trying to teach us. Get back, reverse your journey, go home. And now in these lockdown days, now you understand. Go back. You've had enough of jumping and destroying things around. Been so destructive. Go now. and destroy your own ignorance. And slowly, when you start withdrawing yourself from the objects to the senses, from the senses and to the intellect to the great self, the great soul in the Hiranyagarbha, and from there to the peaceful self. You are experiencing a higher and higher and higher degree of consciousness. No longer will you feel small. People say, "Oh, if I go inside, I'll become, atomic or tiny, because the external world is vast." No. The more you plunge within you, the more you will become subtle. You will become all-pervading. You will become great. Your joy and everything has become magnified. And this is how we understand we are going down to the root of this universe. So when we say from the unreal lead us to the real, from darkness lead us to light, from death lead us to immortality. Outside it is death, it is unreal, it is, as you say, darkness. And the more you plunge within, more there is immortality, more there is light, and more there is the real. So there you discover your real self. What's your real self? I am so and so. No, you've transcended all that. I am that supreme self. Okay? I think we can.
There's some questions.
Yeah.
How do we practice daily to realize that I am Brahman?
Well, the Vedanta gives a discipline of,
Just like repeat the question.
how do you realize that I am Brahman? Well, you got to remind yourself, keep on shravana, keep on listening to this. Then deep thinking, manana. You've got to analyze, remove the chaff from the kind of a kernel, remove everything that is the not-self, and then plunge the mind into meditation, nididhyasana. So the three is the hearing, shravana, manana, deep thinking, analytical thinking, and deep meditation. So this is the way you realize that. So please remember, when you want to realize Brahman, you've got to understand that you've got to think of yourself right now as a universal, not as an individual. Otherwise, you get into deep trouble. Yeah. You say, I am Brahman, and still have these likes and dislikes and So, shravana, listening to the words of the Guru and the words of the scriptures that delineate the doctrines of Advaita Vedanta, manana, nididhyasana. Well, are there any secondary disciplines? Oh yes. There is something called a fourfold disciplines. The discernment between the real and the unreal. The giving up of all fruits of actions year and year after. Then the acquisition of the 6 treasures. Control of the external organs, control of the internal organs, withdrawal, faith, concentration, all these. They are the 6 treasures. Stamina, that is titiksha. Shama, Dama, Uparati, Titiksha, Shraddha, Samadhana. And then the 4th discipline is the desire for freedom, mukti, liberation. So these are the fourfold disciplines that are compulsory to practice and understand Vedanta. If you have them, then you do them, Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. hearing the words of the scriptures, then thinking about it analytically, and then deep meditation. So there are two levels of spiritual practices. Now, oh, that's very difficult. Well, you can take help. You do receive help from something called the personal God. And the grace of the Guru, the grace of God and the grace of Guru. So, how do you do that? Well, pray, repeat the names of God, and slowly you'll see yourself filling up with grace. That which would have taken maybe lifetimes is now accomplished within one lifetime.
Filling up the what?
In one lifetime.
No, you said something filling up.
Like it might take many lifetimes,
Okay.
and that is compressed by grace into this now one lifetime. Maybe you can get it tomorrow or day after tomorrow. So grace is also an integral, you can say, aspect of spiritual disciplines. Like Sri Ramakrishna, the more you go towards the east, the west falls away. Or you take one step towards God, God takes 10 steps towards you. I think that's called grace.
You want to answer another question?
Yeah. You see?
If we are already free, then how do we get desires? Why do we get desires? How?
Yeah, that's because of Maya. Do you feel yourself free? If you feel yourself free, to get back to it, you must feel your own existence as cosmic. It's only then when you will feel that I am free. As long as you have a body, your consciousness is kind of contracted and made into a kind of a single unit here. And that's where you will have these desires. What are desires? These likes and dislikes, and then the memories. So, if you are free, yes, we are all free. But that knowledge has been covered. Why is it covered? Well, there are three things that cover it. Avidya, ignorance, kama, desires, and karma. And then the fruits. So we run through these series, and that's why we don't feel free. By nature, we are free, yes, but we have not yet realized our real nature. When we do, we will be beyond desires, beyond ignorance, beyond karma. And if we can realize that, yes, the Atman is called Nitya Shuddha Buddha Mukta. The Atman is called eternal, pure, awakened, and free. So then what happens is you will realize your real nature as the Atman. Okay? We stop here for Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu.
So tonight 7:30.
Tonight 7:30 is reading from the Gospel by Swami Satyamayananda. Stay tuned and come over. Tomorrow is Buddha Purnima, celebrated here. And once again at 7:30 in the evening, there will be a small worship and a small celebration. Till about 8:30 here.